We're learning Zilu Nishmas Etta Ahuva Basra Maseches Bava Basra Perek Vav Mishna Yomi Hamoicha Yayin Lechaveiroi V'Hichmitz. If someone sells wine to his friend and it turns into vinegar, Einoi Chayev B'Achriyusei, the moicher is not responsible because b'shas the mechira it was wine, and that which it turned into vinegar that happened afterwards is not the responsibility of the moicher. But im yadua sheyene machmetz, if it was known that his wine is going to turn into vinegar because it happens every year, so then harezeh mekach tois, then it's a mekach tois. The Gemara says that in the Reisha, when we say that he's not chayiv b'achriyusa because b'shas he sold it, it was wine and it only turned into vinegar afterwards, Rabbi Yosef Chanina, that's dafka if the barrel belonged to the likeach. But if the barrel belonged to the moicher, and the Gemara further clarifies, it was a case that the moicher told the likeach that you could slowly use the wine from this barrel, so then the likeach could have a taina on the moicher, and he could tell him, hachamarcha v'hakankancha, here's your wine, here's your kalim, it was your kalim, your kankan, your barrel that caused the wine to turn into vinegar. And the Rishbam further explains, because the wine was really vinegar the whole time, it just wasn't nicker until it actually turned into vinegar, but it was already mekulkul from before. That's one sheet in the Gemara. There is a different sheet in the Gemara. B'chia Bar Yosef argues and says, even in such a case, even if the barrel belonged to the moicher and the lekeach was using it slowly, it's still the moicher is still not chayiv b'achriyusa, because the moicher could tell the lekeach, now that you own the wine, we say mazla demare garim, the owner of the wine, who's you, now the lekeach, it's your mazel, and I'm not responsible. Mishnah continues, if he said that he's selling him yayim mevusam, which is a better wine, which usually lasts longer, so then it's expected that it shall last until Shavuos. After that, it's not expected to last because the heat ruins it. V'yashan, if he tells him he's selling him old wine, mishal ishtaket, it has to be not this year's wine, it has to be from last year's wine. V'yoshin, mishal shalosh shanim, it has to be from the year prior to that. Mishna Daled, hamoicher makom lechaveiroi livnois lobayis, if someone sells to his friend a place, and the purpose of this place we know is to build in it a house, v'chein hamekabel mechaveiroi livnois loy beis chasel leminoi, someone accepts upon himself to build a bias for his son, beis almanos lebitoi, or a bias for his daughter. And the Gemara, this is just agav, the Gemara says, how come by the son it's called the beis chasanas, and by the daughter it's called the beis almanis, which means that she's only going to use the house after she's divorced. So the Gemara says, because the Mishnah is saying that while she's married, she's going to live near the father of the boy, because we don't want, it's not a good idea for the chassan to live next to his mother-in-law because of cheshad, and therefore the derech is that while someone's married, they live next to the parents of the boy, and then only if chas v'shalom afterwards, if someone dies, then the girl would live by her parents. So the question in this Mishnah is, that's totally aga. The question in the Mishnah is how big is a stam bayis? How big is a house? So it's a machlekes. Rabbi Akiva says, Boina arba amas al sheish divi Rabbi Akiva. It's a 4 by 6 amas. Rabbi Shmuel loy me refes ubakar zeh. That's not a house, that's a refes bakar. Now, in the next words in the Mishnah, there's 2 ways how to read it. One way is it's Rabbi Akiva saying his explanation. Because you're right, it's a refes bakar, but okay, so you could have a house that's like a refes bakar, that's a 4 by 6. Even though it's a refes bakar, sometimes a person builds his dira like a refes bakar. And the other tzad to read the Gemara is it's a continuation of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel is saying that refes bakar is that because the refes bakar is 4 by 6. How much is a bayis katan? The sheish al shmeina is 6 by 8. Gadol, how much is a bayis gadol? Shmeina al eser is 8 by 10. Trakon, how much is a palace? Is eser al eser is 10 by 10. So there's 4 different shiurim in the Mishnah, either 4 by 6, 6 by 6, 8 by 10, or 10 by 10. Now the Mishnah says, and this is going on all those 4 cases, Rumai kechatzi arkai u kechatzi rachbai. So let's say in the case of Traklin, where it's a 10 by 10, you take half of 10 and half of 10, which is 5 plus 5, and the height is supposed to be 10. Bayis Gadol, which is 8 by 10, so you take half of 8 and half of 10, which is 4 and 5, and take the two together, the height should be 9. And if you have a Bayis Katan, is 6 by 6, so you take half of 6 and half of 6, which is 6, so the height is 6. So it comes out that a 6 by 6, the height is 6, an 8 by 10, the height is 9, and a 10 by 10, the height is 10. Raya l'davar heichel. Where do we find such a thing? By the heichel. Shimon Gamliel oimer hakol kibinyan heichel. And over here, there's also two ways how to learn it. Either Raya l'davar heichel is Shimon Gamliel speaking, and he's just explaining that we learned this out from the heichel, which was 40 by 20, and if you take half of 40, it's 20. Half of 20 is 10. 20 plus 10 is 30, so the height is 30. So 40 by 20, the height is 30. Or the other way to learn it is that the Tanakama is saying you learn out from Heichel, and Shimon Gamliel is actually asking Hakol Kibinyan Heichel. You're going to learn it from the Heichel. Rather, I hold Hakol Kiminig HaMedina.